Hello.
Hey Greg, how are you?
I'm very good.
You have to be good, right? After all that, these amazing and exciting news.
Well, you don't have to be, but yeah, no, life can happen between news, and but today's a good day. It's beautiful outside. I've got this. I was just sitting outside with my dog, and it's really nice. But in my room here, where I do these meetings, it would just all the sun would just be blowing me over from the side, so I just have to kind of close the drapes up.
I know because I have the window behind the screen and it always I look like a ghost.
Yeah. It's the video thing.
I like how you try to keep the not the expectations, the tone down. But for us, the old school metalheads, seeing Forbidden getting back to action is huge news, man. Come on.
With age comes wisdom, and with wisdom comes the reality that sometimes hype is best left for a hindsight. Like not really a great idea to over sell what's happening. But
Oh,
I mean,
I understand.
that being said, and I got to say, I think that there's an incredible potential for something really great to come out of this particular lineup.
Hmm.
And I don't think that it's lost on me how rare it is to get a third chance to do this thing. And with Russ being truly not interested in doing any of this stuff, I was truly not interested in doing any of this stuff, and that was the way I went into it. And there was no the story that you're hearing out there is what's great. I was just talking to Chris about this. What's so cool about it, Contos, I'm talking about, is that that's exactly what happened. We don't have to have any discussions on the side about shaping it like the way you want it or making it sound like a certain thing. It was what it was. It was a formation of multiple things happening to finally make this guy the last one to really accept it. Go, okay, the universe is opening up. I'm willing to jump into this thing.
So that means that in 2012, when Forbidden disbanded, you said, okay, that's done. I will never go back to that.
Kind of. It was more. There's a few things that happened at that point, and it was kind of like it dissolved. It really we didn't like break up. But at that point, we'd already gotten Sasha Horn to replace Mark Hernandez. That was a big move because drummers tried out from all over the world, And Sasha's now an ex-Hoarder, and I'm super happy for him. Love him, great guy. But we went to Chile to the Metal Fest, which just happened this weekend, and again this weekend, but it happened in 2012, and that was Forbidden's last show. And it was on that flight home that Russ, took me aside and basically said in so many words, "I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to play whack." And I told him, I said, "You don't want to play whacking? Like that's it's a big deal to play whacking, man. We already turned it down a bunch of times in a row." So there was a discussion we had where I just realized he wasn't into it, and it was tough on his body and tough on his mental capacity. He had knee problems and the alcohol problem, obviously that's pretty well known now. So didn't really break up. We just kind of went, it fizzled out, it
Right.
just fizzled. And I continued to do other things, and after a few months, and a year goes by, it just kind of fizzled out and died off. So there was no ceremonial, we're breaking up. It was just like, it wasn't anger too.
In all honesty, I don't think when bands disband, there is some huge event or some, it's the way, as you said, that how the press likes to present things. Sometimes we just grow up and we cannot do the things that we could do some decades ago. And that's perfectly understandable.
Yeah, it is. That's perfectly understandable for a person that's reasonable, but a lot of people aren't. And we all have our memories of the way we want things to be. Mm-hmm. Like everybody has their favorite thing that they remember exactly how it was. For instance, I don't like The Mandalorian because I feel like it shits all over the old Star Wars franchise, and I didn't like the other three movies again. So, but that's me. But other people, I love it because I know everything about all these cartoons, and I follow, this. And I'm like, I didn't follow it, so I don't fucking get it. So people come into Forbidden like, I want Forbidden exactly the same way I remembered it. And I get it, but it ain't going to happen because, like I've had to use this analogy a bunch. It's like having a fist, man. And, each finger of the fist is important, or it's not a fist. It's just a bunch of fingers. And you break your finger if you don't have everybody
on board,
working together. And that was what was going on with Forbidden towards the end. And we needed to reevaluate how to even pull this off. And I do want to write new material. And I do. Norman Skinner, which we get into, but he's always been a complete professional here. He probably should have been in a really big band already, but he's more in the power metal realm, which you kind of have to have a little bit of that in your background to do the Forbidden thing. But he was also a thrash metal kid, and Forbidden was his favorite thrash metal band. Or his first show he went to. Russ used to point at him and go, "Look, it's little Russ from the stage." I mean, there's a lot of things. The symmetry and the full circle thing is completely not lost on me.
So the interesting and very interesting thing with this rebirth, as you say in the press release, is that
bloody rebirth, we'll call it. Yeah.
Is that you didn't plan for, and therefore you were not looking for singers. It just fell on your lap, right?
Yeah, kind of. The story goes, we were practicing for Bay Area Interthrational, which is something we brought to Dynamo. And all of our singers were either located in other states or that are going to be doing this thing, because nobody plays their own song at the Interthrational. Everyone has to stand on the side and watch the other guy play their song. That's what makes it special. So we played the Death Angel song where they were watching and vice versa, and, things like that. So our singers were like Caden from Hyrax, Randy from Lamb of God, Mark from Death Angel. We had Will Carroll sing, and Kayla Dixon ended up singing the song because George, who's my singer for Dress the Dead, because George Corpse Grinder had to pull his bus out too fast, so he couldn't do it. So you have to be flexible. So we didn't have anyone to sing, and then I was like telling Chris, I'm like, dude, we got no one locally. He said, what about Norman Skinner? I'm like, oh yeah, like that guy's good. And I remember he played with Forbidden a couple times. Hung out with him many times. We went and saw some Prog Power in, Atlanta years and years ago. And I've seen Norman around. I know he's good. I know he's a real pro. And I said, okay, well, let's just see if he's interested. And he's like, yeah, dude, what do you need? I'm like, you got to learn 12 songs. And
oh, that's easy.
So he came in and was nailing all of them. And then at the end of the practice, I go, well, we might as well go over the Forbidden song, because it's going to be played out there. And I'm not even thinking about it at the moment. I was like, oh shit, we're not playing that song. No one's playing. None of us in this room are going to play that song on stage. I don't even know why we're doing it, but Matt started the bass. We started getting into it. And I was like, okay. And then Norman started singing, dude. And I was like, everyone in the room looked at each other. And then the door opens. It was Chris Contos, because this was Mark Hernandez, our last drummer, was doing Interthrational with us. So he was a part of that. And so he obviously knew the song, and so we were playing it. And door opens, Chris is like, oh. And Harold O stands up behind him, like, they're just like, holy shit, they had this look on their face, and I heard it. So that was just the thing, And I said, it's not lost on me, how great that sounded. And then fast forward to after Dynamo, we got to come back. And the next time we had to do an Interthrational show for the Bay Area, it was like 30-something songs and 30-something musicians. And I asked Norman if he'd be interested in being a part of the show this time, because he was so good, and everybody's like, yeah, we got to bring Norman in. So my idea was to put him with Warbringer to do Chalice of Blood. And so I never heard it until they came into rehearsal the night before, because I wasn't about to play it. I was like, I'm not going to play the Forbidden song for rehearsal. I'm not going to do it. You're going to do it with those guys. I'm out. So we watched them do it at rehearsal. They came into San Francisco. We played at SIR. And as soon as he started singing, there's like 20 people in the room all turned, kind of looked at me like, oh, yeah, okay, I hear it. So that was round 2. And then round 3 was on stage. He absolutely storming Norman, completely killed that song with confidence and power. And he had Russ's, cadence is really, really strong, right? And you can't just have a dude do it. It just doesn't work out. You have to have the wind and the power. Mm-hmm. And Norman was amazing. And even then, I still didn't accept it. It wasn't until we got an email from the Alcatraz Metal Fest asking if we'd be interested in doing a 35th anniversary Forbidden Evil one-time exclusive European show. And they specifically suggested this. Would you mind, or would it be all right if you did it with another singer? Because Russ isn't healthy right now and he's not singing anymore. He's retired, something like that. And would you be interested in having Chris Contos play drums? Because I know you already played with him in the Boneless Ones, and it makes a great story. And even then, now that was the moment I said, okay, I have to examine this. The universe was telling me I had to look at it. That's fine. But I wasn't sure about the drummer situation. I already played with Chris in Boneless Ones, and I didn't want to fuck that up. I didn't want my relationship with him to get fucked up. And Mark wasn't in the band anymore since 2011. And, I was like, what am I going to do for drummers? So I actually called Chris and told him I was going to do that. And he had a bunch of suggestions for drummers for me. Because he's like, yeah, man, we should probably, keep it separate. And then I talked to some great drummers, man. Everyone was interested, but they all lived out of town. And then I called Chris back a few days later. I'm like, look, dude, before I pull the trigger on one of these guys, we should probably talk about it again. I'm like, do you want a chance at doing this? Because you're right here. I know you. You're a great friend. You're a great fucking drummer. I can write music with you now. We can work on songs sooner than these guys would be available. And then he's like, okay, I'll do it. And that's how the lineup came together.
So basically, you're saying you have to be honest with me. All this time you were auditioning the singer, right? I'm pulling your leg. I'm joking, man.
Yeah. So no, you would think, but I mean, dude, I have such great respect for Russ. I don't think there's really anybody better, and I don't think there ever will be. But I've been very blessed, and Russ is the greatest, has more tools in his belt than any other singer I knew. And then Kayla Dixon, who's phenomenal as well, but she's only 26 years old and comes from a different background. But she's they're the two greatest singers I've ever been around, ever. Aside from guys like Halford, who I've never jammed with, people that are up to that level. So I've been lucky. And then Norman fits right into that. He's right in that ilk. He belongs in there with those people because that's how good he is.
So this lineup is going to play in Alcatraz.
Yep.
And will you get the chance to add a couple of shows locally? Are you even allowed to do that?
No.
That was
not
hard no.
No. We made an agreement, and I'm okay with it because I think that the thing to do, I mean, quite honestly, we could spread ourselves in a lot of different directions, and I don't want to do that. To focus on Alcatraz, number one.
Okay.
Because that's the 35th anniversary. I want to play the entire record. I want to play it in the key of E, which we wrote it in, which we haven't done since probably 1991 or 92 or something like that. So that's what we need to focus on with a couple other songs surrounding them. We got an hour. And then when we get back, I want to concentrate on writing a record. I want to really sit down and start working on that with these guys. And I have a lot of good ideas in my head already. And I want to start executing those. That's important to me. Because otherwise, if we're not starting to write and we're just playing a bunch of shows and writing on the coattails of our past, that record won't come out to 2025. So I'd like it to come out by the end of 2024.
So the show at Alcatraz will be the only one for the entire world for this year? This is what you're saying?
I cannot confirm or deny if that is the case, but I can say that right now, that's all that we can talk about for the time being.
Okay.
And maybe something towards the end of the year, but nothing in Europe.
Okay, that's fair. How do you understand now the band and how you can, in what way, how you can keep the connecting thread between the albums that you have already released and with Russ on the vocals and with the new upcoming album? How do you have it in your mind? Have you set requirements in the songwriting? I cannot even explain what I'm talking about, but I think you understand.
I think I understand. And the real, first of all, there's a thread here that's not disappearing. And that would be myself since the very beginning. And also Matt's been with me since the first album as well. So, but as far as vocals go, I worked so closely with Russ and, we worked on, vocal melodies and lyrics together, and I wrote most of the lyrics from Twisted to Form On. But we always worked together. So I would do the same process with Norman, and it has to get through, put through that filter, to like for him to learn how I communicate lyrically and stuff like that. And he's totally, completely open for it. Like he wants to learn. He's like, he really wants to like go through this process because he knows it's going to make him stronger. So, and then, you know, Steve Smythe was there for Omega Wave, and that thread's not going anywhere, you know. So there's three guys that were already there. Kaoz is a fucking encyclopedia of musical knowledge, thrash school, punk school, rock school. His dad was a famous producer. He brings a wealth of wisdom and knowledge in songwriting and production. And I mean, dude, I just do a little punk rock band with them called the Boneless One. We're very fun. It's like super fun band. But the amount of shit we brought to that band that made that record as strong as it is together, helping those guys, you know, realize because that's a legacy skate rock band from the 80s that is like really important to a lot of people in the skate culture. So we couldn't fuck that up. You know, we had to nail it, you know. So I'm used to working with Chris. So I think it's going to be forbidden. It's like, it's going to be forbidden. People, as I said earlier, people have their own idea of what they think something is.
Right.
But at the end of the day, what forbidden is, you know, great players working together and running it through myself as the vessel to kind of put it all together. And essentially, I mean, it sounds like it's an egotistical thing, but it's not, because I look back at it now and it's very clear that I got thrown a lot of fucking work because guys didn't want to do it, you know? So now everybody wants to work. So I'm willing to listen to everybody and try to figure out how to make this album as legit as we possibly can. But it's got to be a thrashy record.
There is nothing egotistical in that, man. Come on. There is nothing. It's
you
your own music.
Right, but yet got their own opinion. Like Perry Farrell, you know. Everybody's got their own opinion. And it's true. It's like everyone's got their own idea of what they think something is. Every fucking player that played in this band was phenomenal. You know, starting with Bo Staff, going to Glenn, going to fucking Tim Calvert, you know, Steve Jacobs, you know, and you know, Gene Hoglan came in after Steve. And so each drummer was phenomenal. Right. Like each guitar player is phenomenal. But I'm the glue. And that's always been the consistent factor. And as long as I'm willing to be that glue and I put my heart and soul into it, I think everyone will be happy if they listen to it knowing that. But if you're holding on to the idea that it's got to be this guy who was in the band for a couple of years here, I mean, you know, it was amazing to me how many, well, not a lot of people, but a few people were like, why isn't Paul Bostaff doing it? Like, dude, he left in 1991 and hasn't been back. You know, Paul's my friend, but he is not coming back to Forbidden. He's with Kerry King. They're joined at the hip. So
this goes back to the old school metalheads, right? Sometimes we are very, very narrow-minded. And when we see the Forbidden logo, oh, it will sound like it did in the 90s. It's not going to happen. And if sometimes bands try to do that, try to reproduce their sound, it sounds a little bit miserable, if you ask me. I would love to hear... Right.
It can. Well, you know, hey, I always say not all of anything is everything. You know, it's like we'll see where it all lands. You know, but I anticipate Forbidden stick in the landing pretty good. You know, I anticipate it being a very, very strong record. I have not, you know, personally, my shit has not always caught on. You know, I've been in a lot of different things and done a lot of stuff since Forbidden. You know, we can go through that or we can't, but we don't need to. But I can tell you, you know, I'm the only one that of my peers besides Slayer that worked with Rick Rubin, you know, like that did shit. Yeah. I mean, I've learned a lot and I've worked with some great people along the way. And I've maintained all the good relationships, all the positive ones with everybody that I've learned from. So I think, you know, with that wisdom there is going to come a lot more, you know, confidence. And I can produce this record with, you know, a great engineer and hand it off to an excellent mixer and be 100% confident that that's the best way to go. You know, I have no problem with that. And again, I'll defer some stuff to everybody in the band, but having ears like Chris Kontos in the bands is a plus. He didn't get to use it as much, you know, like when he did the Machine Head thing and they did their whole, you know, 20th anniversary of Burn My Eyes, they leaned heavily upon Chris's opinion for production of stage, lights, sound. You know, Rob respects him greatly, but yet Chris doesn't want to be in Machine Head. It's just his, he just didn't want to do it because creatively it wasn't as much musically what he was into these days as it was what it was back then. So that was a personal decision,
Yeah.
But there's great respect for Chris on a lot of levels, and nobody's a joke here. Steve Smythe is an encyclopedia as well. Great theory knowledge, and he's brilliant. Anything I write, he knows right where to go with the harmony. He knows right where to go with a counter melody. He's brilliant. So, I mean, everybody. And Matt's a better bass player than he's ever been. He's fucking phenomenal these days. He's puts hours in every day for years where he never even touched his bass for years. And he just sits in there, he's playing like 8-finger stuff now. It's crazy. So Matt's incredible, so everyone's great. I mean, we already covered Skinner. So,
do you have in mind, or have you a clear timetable how you will start working after your show in Europe?
Things will become clearer once people start to understand what the plan is as it starts to unfold.
Okay.
But I mean, it's got to be come home and mess around with, starting to write the record and putting these pieces together. And the first thing is just for Chris and Norman to be completely comfortable playing the songs. And I really want to streamline these songs, keep the energy the same, but they're going to sound a lot better than they used to. They're just it's just the players, it's like everyone's good at what they do. So it's going to be a tighter version of the band. And I think people will be pleasantly surprised. And I'm going to go back to Tuning to E to hear those songs in that key because nobody does it anymore. It's so rare that one of my peers, my contemporaries, are willing to go and do that because usually it's a vocal thing where they don't have a singer that is comfortable hitting those high notes every night. But Norman's great, so I don't really have a problem.
So I guess his power metal, let's say, foundation helps with that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I told him. It's funny. We laugh about this because he's asked me. He goes, "What's the first piece of advice you can give me before I delve into it? Like learning all the songs back to front." I'm all 90% less power metal, 100% more thrash metal. He's like, okay. So that's it. There's an approach you have to go because Russ was like the Rob Halford of thrash metal. It wasn't that he's not doing power metal type of keeping it. How would you describe power metal? I feel like power metal is like it never goes full tilt. It's always kind of underneath and above a line. Power metal's safe. And it's there's some great power metal stuff.
Yes.
But thrash metal's like up and down over the line, fucking jump, it's just doing this and it's much more dynamic. At least the way Russ did it. That's why he was the greatest, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. Have you signed a record deal or have you come to an agreement with a record label there?
Well, we're still with Nuclear Blast.
Okay.
At least I am. And they want it. And I don't really see a reason to go anywhere else.
I was not implying that, man.
No, I know you weren't. But I mean, I wouldn't want to there's no reason to rock the boat to try to get out of that because it's a good deal and they're a great label. And we didn't get to finish when we started. So I feel like that's a good place to be.
So you said that come back, start working on the new album. Do you think this will take the entire next year to finish that?
I think it could take the entire, a good portion of next year. I'd like to be in the studio by the second half because I anticipate us playing festivals next year. I think we're going to have to take a break and do a festival run because, we're not doing them all this year. They all do want us for next year. I don't think very few haven't gotten a hold of us already. Like, hey, so what are you going to do?
Just give it a couple of weeks. Give it a couple of weeks.
Yeah, give us a month, So we got to figure out a lot of things, but it has to be the priority. It just has to be. You got two ways you can go about this. You can make everyone happy and try to play everything everywhere and try to ride off the coattails of our past, or you start moving forward and trying to do something, relevant and special today. And for me, lyrically, I've got a lot that I want to say that's happened in the last 12 years. I feel like a lot of Omega Wave was written about conspiracies of past and the present there and things that I thought might come to pass that have definitely come to pass since then. If you go back and listen to those, I got lucky on a couple and I nailed a couple and, some other things haven't quite come to pass yet, but I feel like Omega Wave nailed it down for that time. And I want to do something similar, today. My dog is barking in the background. She wants inside of him.
Well, we are.
Hold up. Well, she'll be all right. She'll be okay.
We are wrapping this up. Don't worry. But yeah, I was as I was hearing you say talking about the lyrics of Mega Wave. It's interesting that some of the '90s thrash lyrics, thrash metal lyrics that were written back then are so relevant nowadays. And I don't know why we have come to this cycle. It's bizarre. Instead of going forward, we are moving backwards. That's how it feels to me.
Well, I feel like that was what was going to happen. Mega Wave was those lyrics I started writing in 2009. The first song that I wrote lyrics for was Hypnosis, and I actually started writing those lyrics in 2008 before the election, before Obama was elected.
Okay.
Because I saw what a charismatic character he was, and I just knew that he was going to be able to pull people in, and and I always I'm always skeptical over anyone who wants to be a president in the first place has got a problem, right? So I've always been like, and that has never stopped. They've always, they always want to be, in charge. Obviously, they have some sort of. You talk about egos. You got to have a massive ego to actually want to be a president. So that he was exactly what I thought. He was a silver tongue. Knew how to speak to large crowds, charisma off the charts. I saw it. So Hypnosis is like just that being hypnotized by his character. And he still ran the same war, industrial war complex as everybody else. The same people still ran the banks. The same people still, are the same families, and that continues.
Of course.
I wrote about, that continues. And Donald Trump come up after all that, and people thought it was going to be different. He's going to change it. No, he just tried to get a different bunch of people money. He wanted his people to have the money instead of those people.
Right.
And that uprising. The overthrow, the uprising of people not understanding exactly. Like I saw the media controlling people, always have, but through the internet, I saw like algorithms, and that's what Omega Wave is about. How an algorithm can completely control the way you think, and box you into like this is the only news you're going to see is what you want to see.
And this is exactly what is happening, right? This is exactly what is happening.
Yeah, and I can go through each song and tell you that most of that shit has already happened. A song like "Forsaken at the Gates," like that's kind of like being on the other side of the blast doors of a giant, underground facility. Like and they made a movie about it since then. But but yeah, these were all fun subjects for me that it's scary stuff, but we're all just passengers on this ride. It's like. And what I've come to understand all these years later about all this, no matter how bad or good everything gets, unless you're directly involved in some sort of, government thing or CIA or you're part of a family or that's very wealthy or you own a corporation that makes, things for the industrial war complex, you're never going to fucking know. So we all can talk about shit and we don't really know anything. So it's really a hobby for all of us to talk about it. And some people just get so fucking serious. And it's like, you don't fucking know. You don't even understand. They're eating babies. Like, yeah, but have you seen it yourself or did you see it on the internet? Like, you don't fucking know. And that's my point. It's like, it's outside of my lane. My lane is, I play metal. I like to talk about shit. I write riffs.
This is what I was talking about, the thrash from the 90s, that I like how it was opinionated. Not opinionated in a fact that I am attacking you. I'm telling you things. I am telling you things, describing things that I don't like. And this is what it seems like you will be doing for the next Forbidden album.
Absolutely. I've been continually, like the Two Skulls on Forbidden Evil, I've been continually evolving that battle for, the good and evil within our own minds. Like that's more or less where that whole thing lies. It's, and some songs I wrote about myself, truly wrote about myself. Like a lot of shit on Green was like frustration where I was at that point in my life, dog paddling and not getting anywhere. It's all therapeutic for me. It's all very helpful.
And that it's not only for you who write and play this music, it's for us listening to music. When I was growing up, metal was my haven, right? It was a place where I can vent out, could vent out. I could go to a concert and feel like I was part of a community. Although nowadays I'm not 100% this is applicable nowadays, but let's keep it romantic.
I'm going to pay you a compliment. I really like the way you think and the way you're looking at things, and you're correct. In my opinion, at least, you're correct. And I think that there's a disconnection these days to really being in touch with, yourself and your soul, because there's so many other electrical devices that fucking take our minds away and pull us into different directions with different, telling us how to think, telling us how to feel. It's like the old TV set, of 1984, but it's way more evolved than that, because they have artificial intelligence that's already figured you out. They already know what you like, how you want to think, how you want to be, like Skynet, it's, science fiction always becomes science fact eventually.
Yes. And I hope, speaking of AI, I hope we won't see bands writing lyrics using AI. And
yeah, that'd be a bummer.
Well,
that'd be a bummer.
Anyways.
I can see it happening, though. I mean, they say technology is a tool. That's fine. To each their own, man. But I think with Forbidden, like even with the way we record a record these days, or with the way we did in 2010, you could, with Pro Tools, you are afforded the ability to fix everything and make it sound perfect. And I absolutely did not do that. I made sure if it sounded alive to me, I will keep that. Like, don't fix that. I don't want those guitars moving around. Yep. I don't want that kick drum moved. I said, let's use it like tape. Let's just record it. And just because we can doesn't mean we have to.
Right.
And so at the end of the day, I think it's one of the reasons why that album will stand the test of time. People come back to it. Because all these other records, nothing against them, but their approach is to make it sound as unhumanly heavy and fucking perfect as possible.
Right.
And I just don't think that that's what the kids really want. I think that's what they're used to.
Of course,
because that's why they like the old shit.
Right.
It's real.
Right. And because we had this explosion of digital tools that everybody at some point started to sound alike. And now...
And I refuse to do it. And I still won't do it. And it won't happen for this record either.
Absolutely. The music has to sound on record, on vinyl, as it will sound on stage. That's my ultimate...
In fact, I don't know if I can pull it off and if the budget will really allow it, but I would love to record drums and basic tracks to tape and then just do vocals and things like that, over on Pro Tools. We need more tracks, overdubs and stuff. That would be great, because you just can't beat that warmth.
Yes.
You just can't beat it.
Absolutely. Greg, thank you very much for your time. I'm still excited for these things. Whenever there is a band from my teenage years, why not?
Well, I appreciate I feel that you're legitimately excited, and so that means something to me. Where are you from originally? Are you Greek?
Of course.
Okay. I wasn't sure. I mean, I recognize the accent. Well, I appreciate it. I hope to see you in Chicago.
Have a blast in Alcatraz, and see you when we see you, hopefully soon.
See you when we see you.
Absolutely.
Later, everybody.